Take care.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thank all of y'all for coming. And Russell's right. I don't wear a tie very often, and as I told Rich Woodward, I could get untied real quick and easily here if I needed to. But again, thank you for coming, and I appreciate the interest. And what I want to do today is talk some about where we might be going as a department. Part of the charge was to give my administrative philosophy. The other part was to talk some about vision and direction, where we could head in the near future as well as longer term. And so I want to take some time and do that this afternoon. I don't have a bunch of slides. I think there's about a dozen is all. So I don't plan to talk for an hour. So I want to leave some time to have some interchange and feedback and give you a chance to ask some questions. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started, and if you feel like you need to stop me as we go along, please do that. First thing I'll do is talk a little bit about the mission. This is, of course, the 150th year of the land grant system. And I think it's probably appropriate we go back and take a look at what our mission was and what it continues to be today. And I think there's a couple of things I want to point out. One is the accessibility of a practical education that we think is really important. It's maybe that's been modified a little bit to include the word liberal in some circles or in some instances. But the fact that we do pride ourselves on having an institution that is available to the people of the state of Texas as well as the world, I think is a huge asset. And I think we've got to keep that mission implanted in everything we do. And of course, the things we do include, first of all, teaching, which was the cornerstone of the land grant system. When the Morrill Act was passed in 1862, it continues to be a cornerstone of the system. The second thing to come along was research. And in preparing for this, I was doing a little research on sort of the history of how research got started in the United States. And interestingly, we got the idea from England. We realized at that time that yes, it's great to teach, and yes, we can source knowledge from all over the world, although it might lag by a decade or two. But to really learn, we needed our own research. So in 1870, the Northeastern schools, I think maybe Harvard was one of the first ones to lead the charge, began to get serious about doing our own research and, of course, learning. And then, of course, the final component of the system was extension in 1914. And that, again, is one that if you look around the country today, I think Texas is fortunate. We're somewhat unique in that we still do have a strong extension component, especially in our department. And from my philosophical standpoint, I view each of these equally important. I wouldn't tout one over the other. And of course, the final thing is the system, the philosophy, the fact that extension commitment may have waned in some parts of the country challenges this ideal of the land grant system. And it's under attack or assault almost continually. I even hear it from people in our own profession at meetings and on the street corner, in the bar, at dinner, whatever it might be. And I think we've got to really challenge the fact that some would say this system has outlived its usefulness. In my mind, it has not. It's probably as important today as it's ever been. The state of the economy, the fact that we've got, particularly in Texas, a young, growing population that needs access to a practical, applied education. The fact that we do have people returning from wars similar to 1862, although this one is not internal. But those things kind of come together at a time when there's a lot of additional uncertainty in the world. And so I think these three components of the land grant system are as viable today as they were in 1862 and in later times. And so I'd hope that's what we kind of keep in mind as we go through this today. Second thing is the setting. Strong department. I went back and looked at the results of the external review. And they do make the comment, we have a strong department. And I was certainly glad to see that. Of course, we do have, some challenges, one of which is increasing demands on the unit, and that's across the board. Where I hear about it the most, just in talking with people, is in the classroom, both undergraduate and graduate programs. But we also have increasing demands on our extension unit. We have increasing demands on our research component as well. And I think how we respond to those increasing demands will determine what we look like in the future. Faculty departures. We've had a couple announced last week. And we anticipate maybe a few more within the next 3 to 5 years. And there could be those that are unplanned that also occur. And so the question is, how do we deal with these departures? What do we think we want to look like in 3 to 5 years in terms of our expertise, our programs, and the unit as a whole? Shrinking budgets, continued uncertainty. 2 weeks ago, driving into work, listening to the radio, the news comes out of Austin that here we go again. We're going to expect, at best, a flat budget, but also some talk about the fact that budgets could be severely strained again. And nobody's talking about cuts yet, but anytime budgets get strained, the mentality appears to be one that we want to cut rather than look for revenue enhancement. And I think that's an issue that all of us have to deal with, and that leads to the final point about some challenges. Maintaining program excellence. We have some excellent programs. They were cited in the external review. Of course, we all know about them. I'm not going to point them out, but I think the real challenge is how we keep that excellence in the face of fewer and fewer resources, whether it's people, research associates, research assistants, student technicians, funds for additional faculty. How do we keep the program moving forward at the pace and at the depth and breadth that we want it to achieve over time? Secondly, achieving excellence in other programs. We have some new programs. We have some new faculty. Those programs have a lot of potential for excellence. And again, with this shrinking resource base, how do we achieve excellence in those other programs? Meeting the changing needs of constituents. Particularly in the extension side, the quest or the demands for knowledge, the demands for programs has probably never been stronger. And since I've been here, and those of you in extension can agree or not agree, but we can talk about that. But I see it, the demand for our services in extension growing, and I see although our undergraduate enrollment has dipped a little bit, I think potentially it can go up, and that puts additional demands on our teaching resources. Filling current and expected faculty vacancies, of course, I mentioned that earlier. That'll be a challenge, one that we've got to meet head on and decide again what we want to look like in the future. And then finally, we come down to expanding our resource base. Without additional resources, it appears to me that we're pretty much locked in, that we will not be able to have the kind of programs we have had in the past. We won't be able to maintain excellence in all of our programs. And so I really think we've got to be very serious, very focused, and hopefully agree that one of our major jobs has got to be one to source or seek additional funding for the programs that we have and those we want to create in the future. Okay, what are some of the visions? I thought about this a good bit and decided to lay out some options in the form of questions about where we might think we want to head in the future. One would be a consistent top 10 department. Heard that tossed around a little bit. Some say top 5. In meeting with the administration yesterday morning, Dr. Hussey mentioned that we're a top 3 department, and depends on who you look at, what source you want to look at. When I looked at the National Research Council ratings, we were not in the top 10, as I recall. So where do we want to go? What do we want to be in terms of the national level that we achieve? Another option is to achieve national prominence across the board in all of our program areas, in all of our functional areas. And I think we've got some programs right now that are probably already there, certainly already there. Do we want to maintain the status quo? A lot of people believe that when budgets get cut and resources contract, the only choice we have is to hunker down and hold what we got, hope it doesn't get any worse. My view would be that's probably not what I personally would like to see. My view is we become more aggressive and we focus on being the very best we can be, and that is the place. When people think of land-grant economics, this is where they come, Texas A&M. And that would be one thing that I would hope that we could agree is something that we ought to strive to achieve. And so how might we do that? My approach is one that's pretty much vision-led and mission-oriented. I'm very task-focused, probably to the point of being maybe putting some things aside while I accomplish that task and maybe making people mad in the process. But I've found that if you've got something important that's got to be done, you've got to be able to do that. You've got to be task-oriented, mission-focused, and I don't think that I would change that approach. Second thing is teamwork and mentoring. I've found that working on regional projects, working with regional task forces, national task forces, when you can pull a team together, you get all kinds of ideas, and I think the more ideas you can stimulate and have on any particular project or initiative, the more likely it is you're going to come up with a great idea. And so I really like to see teamwork, and I think at the same time it's important that we bring our younger faculty into those teams as not only contributing members but partners who take some leadership roles from time to time and move our team efforts forward. And that's really one thing that I think I would emphasize. Participatory, getting feedback and input, I think is important. Again, it comes down to ideas. Yes, I may have an idea or two, but you may have a better one. And there's a lot of experience here in this room. There's a lot of experience in this building in terms of our departmental resources. And I want to be sure that people feel that they have the opportunity and that I'm receptive to receiving feedback on ideas, because I want to take advantage of that experience. I think we can do a whole lot more together than we can working independently. Informed, deliberate, and decisive. I like to have information. I don't like to run off and make decisions not understanding what the implications are of those decisions. So I do like to take some time to analyze, to try and anticipate what some of the outcomes may be, but then in the end you've got to act and make the decision. And that is what I view as being particularly important in this role, where again we've got strained resources, we may have opportunities to build programs, we got to go get them. And I would hope that that's something we could agree on. And then finally, building synergies from diversity. We have a very large, a very diverse unit, and I think the synergies we can capture from that unit are particularly important, so that what we do together far exceeds what we might do individually. And an example I ran across was that with 2 horses hitched together in a team, you can pull about 8,000 pounds. with 4 horses hitched together in a team, you can pull about 30,000 pounds. So we got a lot of horses in here. And I'd like to see us harness some of those horses and see how much we can pull together. I think diversity is one of the major strengths. I didn't see the external review pick up on this very much. Maybe I missed it, and if I did, y'all tell me. But when I look around the room just at who we've got here today, and of course we're a fraction of our total faculty and staff, but we have a very, very diverse group in terms of the sub-disciplines. There are very few departments in the country that can bring to bear on any particular issue everything from farm management all the way through to marketing and policy and environmental impacts, economic impacts, and all the other things, the sub-disciplines we have in this department. And I think that's a huge strength that we need to focus on. Second thing is the large number of faculties. I think critical mass can be important. Sometimes it's hard to get everybody moving in the same direction, and that's fine. But at the same time, we have a lot of resources to draw from. And then finally, just the geographic dispersion that we have across the state. We're one of the few departments in the country that still has district or regional economists, as they used to be called in some states. We call them district economists here. We can do work on everything from subtropical agriculture to desert, semi-arid to temperate zone crops and livestock enterprises. You know, when the Department of Defense looked for a place to train special operations troops to go into places like Afghanistan and parts of Iraq, some of them are in the Texas Hill Country. And that kind of diverse resource base is unique and one I think we can build on. And so I think we've got to be able to do that. Okay, how do we build these synergies? First of all, we need to decide where we're going. We've got to have a shared vision. If we don't know where we want to get, it's going to be really, really hard to muster the resources. When you talk to people about supporting programs with their money, they want to be sure that it's clear where you're headed. Second thing, we need to set priorities. We are probably beyond the point that we can do every little thing that we've always done in the past. We might have to leave some things behind as we begin to set priorities. If we don't set priorities, I think it'll dissipate our effort, and we'll begin to see our effectiveness as a unit erode. And I think it'll show up probably in the public's eye quicker out in the districts than it will here, simply because they're the ones out there on a day-to-day basis who work with the counties, who work with the county governments, with the agents, commodity groups, producer groups, and others who have an ongoing relationship with those organizations. And as those resources decline, they start to ask questions, well, where are you? And we've already seen this start to happen out in the Uvalde area since we've had a retirement, and water issues, of course, are critical to Texas. The Edwards is critical to that part of the state, and we need somebody out there dealing with those issues. So I think being able to set priorities is something we've just got to do. Third thing is appreciate what we all do, what each one of us does. I'm not sure of the best way to do this. I've got some ideas, but I'd like to see us again work together in teams. I'd like to see some of the research folks get involved in extension programs. I'd like to see extension people get more involved in research projects here on campus so that we not only have the experience, but get a little cross-fertilization, develop some skills, enhance some ability to go out and do things in the future that we haven't done in the past. So I think being able to build on that and appreciate what everybody does is pretty important. Work together for a common purpose. It goes back to the synergy idea that we can certainly accomplish a lot more with 2 or 3 or 4 of us than if I go out and try to do it by myself. And it's even more effective if we all agree or the team agrees on what we're trying to accomplish. Finally, we got to achieve excellence in all we do. And I'm not saying we're not achieving excellence now, and we certainly are in some areas, but I'd like to see all of our programs achieve excellence at a very, very top level. Now, how might we do that? The common theme I'd like to see across all three functional areas is one of increased scholarship. I think that scholarship is absolutely critical. It's as important to extension as it is to research or teaching. In the past, we might have been able to pay lip service to scholarship, but I think presently and into the future, we have got to pay more attention to it. And what I mean by scholarship are the three components that just go back to some of the work that was done by Boyer and maybe even before him in the late 80s when the land grant system was trying to come to grips with what scholarship really meant. And of course, the first thing is create new knowledge, something that's unique, that's in demand by the public, and that expands the frontier of knowledge. Second thing is get it validated by peers. Then we have a method that is not only new and unique, it's validated, it can be replicated, and therefore it has a lot more credibility. And the third thing is get it to the public. I think in a lot of cases that we do an article, we do a paper, we send it off to a meeting, it gets accepted, we present it, and we throw it away. We drop it. We don't take the final step of getting it to the public. And I think as we move forward, whether it's in teaching, research, or extension, we've got to keep all three of these things in mind. Those are the three critical components of scholarship. There's others that we can talk about if you want to, but those are the three things, that sort of the minimum things that really give us credibility. I would hope that through scholarship that we would not have anybody in the department, any faculty member, who couldn't feel comfortable with the resume they have developed as a professional here. If our world as we know it comes to an end tomorrow, they can go get a job anywhere in the country. That's what I'd like to see happen. And certainly we've got a lot of people who can do that, but not everybody. So I'd like to see that enhancement of scholarship. Incentives and rewards. How might we pursue this? One is through the incentive side, salary enhancement and incentive programs. I know the salary incentive program has been changed. I'm not sure of the details, but evidently there are some folks who have been grandfathered in it if they wanted it. For new people, there may be less options. There's the possibility of overload pay for teaching, salary supplements if you have a grant or a contract. There may be other things we can look at, but I think having the proper incentives in place to pursue some of these programs of excellence, to pursue the idea of scholarship will be really, really important. And then on the reward side, agency, the college, the university, all have awards. This department is probably the most awarded department on campus. I mean, every time I turn around, somebody in here is getting an award, and that's tremendous. And I think we should continue that. Professional associations can provide awards. Stakeholder groups can provide awards. And then the ultimate, of course, is salary. And that's the one that right now is the most difficult. It's the one that we have not seen much of in the last few years. But I think it's one that we need to think about when we're trying to gain a vision of what we want to be, and we're thinking about program areas, and we think about getting the resources to develop those program areas. We need to be sure that we're including the proper rewards and incentives in those packages. Now, what might a development plan look like? I just wanted to, this is totally my sort of sketched out approach, and it's not complete. It may not even look like this if we ever pursue it, but it's an idea. And I just wanted to float that idea and get some reactions. First of all, I think we've got to focus on whatever we agree to as our common purpose or our vision and the priorities we set. We've got to keep those priorities in mind. Second thing is we've got to have faculty buy-in. Anything we do, you certainly need to know about it. You may not agree with all of it, but we need to come together and discuss it and move it forward. Third thing is get input from stakeholders. And I'm thinking a broad set of stakeholders. Industry, government, agency, former students. In some cases, maybe even current students would have an interest in some of the things we try to do in terms of achieving objectives or looking at program enhancement or program development. And a part of that is to form coalitions. I think coalitions among stakeholders could be very effective, particularly among individuals with common interest. May have to work a little bit to find those individuals, figure out what their interests are. And that'll take time and that'll take some diligence on the part of the people involved to do it. But I think it's possible, and I think it's something we need to think about. We need a comprehensive plan, one that we feel good about, one that we agree to, one that we agree will work. And then finally, we need to be bold in implementing the plan. We have gone down this road in the past, but I don't think we've been bold enough. We've let things lag. We haven't followed through. In this day and time, the state of Texas is not going to come back in and restore our budget, I don't think. Dr. Sams may have some insight into that I don't, but it looks pretty bleak. And I think we got to be sure that we ask, number one, for everything that we think it'll take to implement and operate a program. We don't want to short sell ourselves and our capabilities. That's what we're doing. We're selling an idea, and we're selling our capability to deliver on an idea to the public. Okay? And so I think doing that becomes really, really important. The second thing is we've got to broaden out. In the past, we spent a lot of time hammering on former students. I'm not sure that's the most effective approach, but I think we've got to broaden out and look beyond that. We've got to figure out what people want, how it meshes with our program objectives, and how we can convince them that it's time for them to participate. Now, here's what I've been thinking about in terms of a strategy, and it involves three components. The first is individual. I don't want to take away the individual initiative. In fact, I want to enhance it. I know a lot of you work with folks on a daily, weekly basis who you believe are potential donors to our programs, and we want to enhance that. We want to bring that forward and make that a part of our program development efforts. But at the same time, there's probably a couple other things we can do to further the objective. There are some new initiatives. When you came up, you might have not noticed, but to the right out here, there was 4 posters. Is there a 5th one, or are those the? There is a 5th one, youth, or?
Well, one that would be appropriate for this department is growing our economy.
Growing the economy. Okay. So there's also feed the world or feeding the world. There's one on environment, protecting the environment. So those are going to become, in the near future, sort of the broad-based initiatives that we can work with the university and the college as sort of an umbrella with A&M research or with A&M Foundation to hopefully pursue how our programs fit under these initiatives. And so that'd be the second. And then the third component would be multi-state or regional. I've had a reasonable amount of success getting resources, working with other faculty from other states, both within the region as well as nationally. And I'd like to try to develop that into a departmental effort where we might be working with 3, 5, 10 departments around the region or the country to try and enhance the resources for all of those units across the board. What do these have in common? Number one, they've got to be entrepreneurial. Some of us are more entrepreneurial than others, and we'd expect those to maybe share their expertise, their approach with those of us who are not, so that we can build from that. The second thing we need to see is that they're program focused. We'll have some priorities in programs, and we've got to remain focused on those priorities. And that's not taking away the individual initiative. If something comes up that you see an opportunity, grab it. But at the same time, we've got to try to meet our program priorities. The third thing is interdisciplinary. I'm going to talk in a minute about some things that are happening where I see opportunities, and most of those mean we get out of our comfort zone as economists, and we turn to other disciplines as partners in a coalition or a team to pursue those interests. And then the last thing, we've got to coordinate. We don't want to meet each other coming and going on the road or in the air. We've got to stay coordinated so that we're clear where we're going, clear what we're doing, and we're coordinating with not only among ourselves, but with what the college and the university is doing, as well as if we expand this to a regional effort, we coordinate among the different states. Okay, just some ideas on where we might focus, and these are nothing but things that I've been thinking about for some time, where I have either had some direct involvement or see some opportunity, and I'm going to put them in terms of enhancement, first of all, and then some new or emerging programs. In terms of enhancement, commodity and financial policy. I don't mean farm policy. What I mean is policies that are currently in place, that may be changing, that affect the way the various entities that use commodity futures, commodity options, interact with the marketplace. We've got a whole set of policies in place under the Dodd-Frank legislation. There could be others coming down the line every time there's fallout, like last weekend or with J.P. Morgan, that we need to tighten the screws a little tighter. Those things are going to impact us. They're going to impact the way businesses operate here and around the country. And I would hope that we could mount an initiative to look at the implications of those things for the state, for the country, in a very effective way. The second is environment and climate. Water, as I mentioned earlier, it's here, it's to stay. It's always going to be an issue for Texas in terms of quantity, in terms of location, in terms of quality. And all three of those issues are impacting Texas today. And it'll overlap with some other areas I'll talk about in a minute. And it's not just water. We've got a huge climate change initiative that in the department that I'd like to see enhanced. I'd like that this would be the place where businesses, institutions, NGO, non-government organizations would come for objective, relevant, applied research on environment and climate and how it impacts not just us, but the world. The third area is food safety and health economics, and I've talked with a couple of you about this. I'm involved with a project that's looking at the economic impacts of beef technologies that will mitigate or eliminate E. coli. And something 5 years ago, if you'd told me I'd be doing that, I'd say, you're crazy. There's no way. I'm a trade person. I don't get into food safety stuff. But yet, here I am. So health, food safety, the impacts of diet and health, all of those things come together, and I think our department's got something to say about it. And we do have some people working in that area now, and again, I'd like to see that strengthened. Okay, new areas or emerging programs. First one's global energy. Texas is an energy state. Okay, we're obviously a traditional energy state. We've got wind turbines. We have other energy operations around the state that impact local economies. The Eagle Ford Shale area in South Texas is having a huge economic impact. It's having a big draw on resources. There's already concern about the contamination of the water supply. I think we got something again to say about that in the way of analysis and presenting that analysis to policymakers. And I'd like that to be one of our primary emerging or new initiatives. Secondary is infrastructure and transportation. We've got a fledgling initiative with TTI, Texas Transportation Institute. Some of you are involved in some of their projects. I've done a little bit with them. But when you look at the world today in terms of what's going to shape our ability to compete, to deliver products to markets, to bring products in here for consumption, infrastructure can be a huge enhancement or it can be a major detriment to our ability to do that. We've got the expansion of the Panama Canal going to happen in a couple of years. And that's going to shift shipping patterns. It'll mean that the big importers of those and users of those containers that are bringing them into Houston will now have lower cost access. And so we really need to be taking a closer look at that. And how is that going to impact our exports? How will it impact our ability to import? And the last one is food systems and food security in Latin America. As you know, I've worked there a long time. Some others of you have as well. In fact, there's a small group of us that sits down and talks from time to time about how we can enhance this. And I think we've probably ignored it long enough. Yes, you can work in Africa, you can work in Asia, you can work anywhere you want, but as far as the unit's concerned, we need to have somewhere that we identify as a priority, that we can go out and make a pitch for funds, and an area that's growing and emerging in this whole realm of food security and food systems analysis is Latin America. Brazil is now the biggest beef exporter, okay? And a lot of people didn't think that ever happened, but it's happened. And it was a surprise in many cases. We weren't in front of it. I'm not sure what we could have done if we had been in front of it, maybe get run over. But nevertheless, we need to know these things. And so I think that's an area where we've got an advantage. And I would hope we could incorporate things like study abroad, graduate student education, and direct exchange of faculty and students for short-term assignments. It's going to take money, of course. But that's one of the things I would hope that we could agree on that would be a priority. Okay, some final thoughts. I think the first thing in my mind that's really important is we capture the synergies we've got in the unit. Not that we don't have groups doing that, but I think as a unit as a whole, we could probably increase our output, our research output, our teaching output, and our extension program output if we could work more closely together. The second thing is achieving scholarship across all three functional areas. I think that's critically important and something that we really have to pay a lot more attention to. The third thing is keep focused on the mission. And that's to provide that accessible education for the public good. I don't see that becoming any less important in the future than it's ever been. I think it'll become even more important, particularly in this state. And then finally, the area of national prominence. I would hope we could agree that that's somewhere we want to go together, and it's something that's worth striving for, and something that when it's achieved, maybe a lot of these resource problems go away. People come look for you wanting you to do the kind of things that we think are important, that'll make a difference in their businesses, in their lives, in their communities. And so I will stop there and see if you have any questions.